to talk about singleness, dating, engaged, and married. Basically, just going over the single and dating part because none of us are engaged yet. None of us are married yet. So, but yeah, we're going to just break it down with a few questions, kind of go over it and everything. So, yes. This is Olive, and this is Kylie, and we're in small group together, and it's so cool because we get to do life together, and so this is just so exciting for me because I get to sit with my ladies and talk about things, all things dating and singleness. So, first question is, what are your thoughts on singleness? And we'll kind of like start, who wants to start?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I am single. I have been single my entire life, 20 whole years, and let me tell you, it's my favorite thing to talk about because I love it so much. I think that the Lord has taught me a lot of things that would have been a lot harder if I were in a relationship, and I really know and believe that my singleness has been a protection over me, even when I was in high school or when I was younger and I really wanted a boyfriend, or I wanted to go on the cute dates and do all the things. I know that now that is a protection 100%, and so I'm so grateful for my time being single and being able to solely focus on the Lord and my lady friends and all of that.
That's awesome. I know. I feel like I'm going to just go down the line.
You go down the line.
But I feel like for me too, in high school, for me, being single and everything was always kind of a challenge because I feel like dating was just the thing that you had to do, especially in college too. It's just everyone you see is getting engaged or dating, and I'm dating someone right now, but when I wasn't, it was kind of hard for me to navigate because I just saw everyone doing it, and of course you're gonna always envy what you don't have. Yeah. So it's oh wow, I wish I had that, or oh wow, I wish my story looked like that. But I honestly, looking back now on singleness, I would have said the same thing. I feel it really protected my heart, and honestly, during that singleness period, it was so crucial for my walk with the Lord, because I think that there are things that you learn in singleness that you will never be able to learn in a dating relationship, married or engaged, whatever that is. I feel I, really grew my relationship with the Lord because that's really all that I was focusing on, and I was okay, how am I going to spend my time in singleness? Am I going to sit around, just complaining that I'm not in another season of life, or am I going to, pursue the Lord that much harder, not only to grow my relationship with Him, but also prepare my heart for the person that I'm going to date eventually, you know what I mean, or marry one day. So I think that that's something that I learned, and my thoughts on singleness. So that's good.
I think, oh gosh, it's been a while since I've been single, so when I was single I was in high school, so it was a little different because I don't think when you're single in high school you're really thinking how can I get the most out of my single season, and so I think I had maybe a whole summer, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I had a whole summer where I was actually single, and I would say taking advantage of it, in the sense that I was just very on fire for the Lord. I wasn't thinking about having a boyfriend. That wasn't what really mattered to me in that summer. I was just, my faith was at that point my own for the first time, and I just wanted to dive deeper into it. And then at the end of that summer is when I met my now boyfriend. So I think it's just it sets you up perfectly when you take advantage of it. And that's something now I talk about it with Olive all the time, and whenever I talk to younger girls about it also, it's just you never know when is the last time you're going to be single.
Yeah.
And how are you going to take advantage of that? I don't regret what I did with my single season, but if I would go back and tell my younger self something, definitely to get closer with the Lord, in the sense of it's just me and Him, I'm not worried about anybody else. I'm not concerned about anybody else's faith or feelings, and it's just me and the Lord, and it's just simple, and it's way easier in that moment. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, kind of going off of that, and kind of our thoughts and our experience with singleness, what would you say is why do we think in our culture and our society, why is singleness seen as such a bad thing, or people despise honestly being single? Why do we think that that's such a thing in our society?
I think that we have a misplaced identity issue because I think that we think that, you know, being a girlfriend or being a fiance or being a wife means that you have security and that you have love for the season, either for the relationship or for the rest of your life. Hopefully, like, you will be loved. And I think that ultimately it's like that craving to be loved and to love. But I think that when you put that in a relationship, a human relationship, especially, you know, before you get to the point of marriage, like, that is not where you should be putting that sort of pressure. And I think that there's a lot of things in culture about, you know, relationship issues, you know, why you may or may not be single. Like, I remember in high school thinking, like, why don't the boys like me? Like, why, you know, and looking back, like, it wasn't even about that. It was literally just the protection of the Lord. Like, it was literally just because the Lord didn't want me to be in a relationship in that time of my life. And so I think that when the culture has put this pressure on relationships because they try to say, like, that is where your security will come from and that is where your love will come from. But that's not the case at all.
Yeah. I think, like, you're really killing everything in your life, for real. I think that, like, honestly, a lot of the time, like when I was in high school, when I was single, like, I think I saw it as such a bad thing because I also craved the, you know, the identity in that relationship, and I thought that, like, you know, that's all that love was, you know, because I misplaced what love was. And so I think I also was demanding like a God-sized need out of a human. And so that just never ever leaves you satisfied because it's not realistic, you know. It's just, so I think that, like, me walking throughout singleness, I was like, this is what I need to be happy, like, this is what I need to be fulfilled. And if I get a boyfriend, if I start, you know, dating this person, like, I'm gonna be fine, you know, and then everything will be okay. It's kind of like how we see marriage too. It's like, oh, when I get married, like, all my problems will go away. And that is, like, I'm not married, but anyone I've ever talked to about marriage, they're like, that is so not true. Like, and so I think that it's like not necessarily, again, like, not necessarily sitting in your singleness and, you know, like, sitting there and, like, feeling bad for yourself, or, like, you know, wishing you were somewhere else, or envying, like, someone else's story, because, like, again, like, God has you right where he has you for a reason. And I think that, like, your singleness could be so beautiful if you choose to just allow God to unravel that for you. So I don't know, just take on it. That's good.
I think for me personally, if I had to say why I think singleness is so hated by so many, is I think it's like a worth issue, in the sense that in high school, when I was single, all I wanted was to be, like, fully known and fully loved once I am fully known, and I couldn't wrap my mind around how to do that through God. So yeah, in high school, I just couldn't wrap my mind around how to get my worth out of the Lord, in the sense that I really thought that the only way that that was going to be possible was from, like, a boyfriend. Don't know where I got that from, because it's not like I've ever seen that happen in a high school relationship. But, you know, that's just kind of like, not just girls, but I think guys sometimes also, like, nowadays we think when you're in a relationship, we see all these people posting, and that was my second answer, is social media. Every couple is a perfect couple on social media, and you see it and you, like, automatically create this, like, whole relationship in your head. You're like, I bet he does this for her, and I bet she has told him everything and he just loves her, and that's what I want, that's what I need. And I feel like in high school and past high school, forever, like, nowadays when social media is so prevalent, you know, it's just a lot of, you know, we see everybody else in these perfect relationships, and we think that that's the missing piece in our lives, because if it's not that, what else could it be? Until you're in a relationship and you realize there's still a missing piece. So
I love that, Kylie. I think that a really important question to ask yourself is, what is the problem that you think a relationship is going to fix? Like, what is, and is that is the solution of a relationship sufficient to actually solve that problem?
Yeah.
And I guarantee you 99% of the time it's not.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had the same thing of like, I just like craved to be known and loved, and like I wanted to share, you know, my life with someone.
Yeah.
I think that we all like have that desire, and that's innate to us, and that's not a bad desire. But I think one of the best things that I did is when I felt lonely or when I felt like I wasn't having meaningful relationships in my life, like I wanted something that was meaningful, I decided to pour into my female friendships and my family and stuff like that, and being able to, and it's by the grace of God that I have amazing people in my life who I'm able to have meaningful relationships with. I don't feel like that pressure, I don't feel like I'm missing something. You know, I have my relational fulfillment in my friendships and my family life, and that helps so much. And so if you just ask yourself and are honest, you know, is it a worth issue? Do you think that you're going to get your worth by a guy telling you that you're pretty? You know, like, do you think that that is going to solve the hurting in your soul? Or is it, do you just long for something more? Like, do you just long for something, you don't know what it is, so you're just assuming it's a boyfriend?
Yeah.
You know, like, ask yourself these questions and figure out what are ways in your life you can actively take on your own to solve them. Because I promise you, there are solutions to these issues, it's just not a relationship. And so trying to figure out how you can enact and take an active part in solving these issues instead of just, you know, complaining about it or longing for something you don't have, I think is so life-changing.
Yeah. And like going off of that too, like I think, you know, like going back and like when I was single and like all the thoughts that I had in that time, something that really knocked me off my feet was like I asked myself the question, like, is God good enough for me? You know, is who Jesus is and what he did for me good enough for me? And then I think like from then I was able to like open my hands to God and just allow him to show me what love was, you know? And so like that's kind of when like all of my searching and like longing and seeking elsewhere kind of stopped. Like I feel like in that moment it was like, you know, it was like a daily surrender to that, but in that moment it was like I was washed over with peace, knowing that okay, like no, like if my answer right now is no, like God is not enough for me, then that's something I'm going to work towards, you know what I mean? And that's more important than trying to waste my time seeking it elsewhere where it's never going to be found. So I think, that's awesome. So going off of like seasons of singleness and stuff, and I know that we got a single lady over here and she's just amazing, like fellas fellas in her. So do we talk about literally literally amazing, but something that and I think that you could just have such a beautiful answer for this as well, but what are important roles like in a godly relationship that, you know, when you come out of like that season of singleness and you transition into a dating relationship, what's something that one you need to look for and two needs to be, you know, firm as like different like roles in the relationship? Like what do you think?
I'm ready.
Right off the bat, I think like when you talk about Christian dating, you're going to hear the term equally yoked a lot, and that's not thrown around for no reason. I think if you're going to look for like a characteristic, a role or whatever in like a boyfriend, a girlfriend needs to be somebody whose relationship with the Lord is strong and like they are pursuing it, but also you can't ask for that if you're not also doing it yourself.
Right.
And I just think that is like number one. I've seen a lot of people who started dating people who they thought that they were stronger in their faith, and it really just boils down to when you're getting to know someone, because there should be a getting to know you period, I believe. Just ask the questions. Like if somebody's passionate about the Lord, they're going to talk about it, you know. It shouldn't be like a secret in their life, you know. It shouldn't be something that's hidden from their friends. It shouldn't be anything like that. And you know, also there comes maturity with that. If you're in high school, that's rare in general, you know. There could be a strong believer who's just but I think that's number one, something to look for. And you know, there's definitely things in the Bible that, you know, there's verses that talk about like what a godly husband and a godly wife look like, and I think that can be applied to dating. But I would also say like try to keep yourself from having a checklist that you hold on too tightly to, because I love my boyfriend dearly, but he is not what I would have picked for myself in the beginning, but this is exactly what I needed. And that just like shows you that like you could have this perfect image in your head of like a perfect boyfriend, and that's not actually the perfect boyfriend for you, or girlfriend or husband, wife, whatever. And you know, in high school it's such like an easy thing when you're single, or really not even in high school, throughout your entire life, to think like, okay, well I just want to know what I want, so then when I see it, like I'll know. But it's like, you know, for every like expectation you're projecting on your boyfriend, understand that like there will probably be expectations for you as well. So like don't put so many unrealistic expectations and then like think that you won't have to live up to any as well, because that's a hard thing to put on somebody. Like we're always growing, we're always changing, and we're always maturing in our faith, so that's a lot. But I don't know, off the top of my head, you know. So
no, I love that. And also I'll admit I had a checklist for a very, very long time.
I also did.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous. I think that, you know, that's like one of the things that I'm sure guys do too, but like girls do, is like you can dream of your perfect guy, whatever. Yeah. And there's certainly non-negotiables, for sure. There are non-negotiables that you have to decide, and that's not a checklist thing. But I think it's really important. I know Ben said it in his, Ben Stewart said it in his series, Single Dating, Married, Engaged, and it really hit me hard. He said that checklists are so self-serving and objectifying. And I was like, dang, you know, like that's exactly what it is, because you're thinking of like, you're thinking of all the ways that they can serve you. Well, I need you to be a hard worker so you can make some money. Like I need you to not be a scrub. Like I need you to be all of these things so you can serve me. And then as soon as they stop doing that one thing, then you're going to be disappointed, because they're no longer fulfilling that need or want that you have, and you're objectifying them. They're no longer a person with their own struggles, emotions, characteristics, life experiences, sins, you know, like they're just a boyfriend to serve you. And so make sure to check your heart. It would be boring, for sure.
I think like for me, like going into like a relationship and like seeking a godly relationship and what that would look like, I think like a lot of the time in like my past, I never truly asked myself, is this a Christian guy or is this a godly man? You know, and so it was like very, like it just wasn't something that I sat with, and I was just like, oh, he goes to church, like, oh great, you know, like this is perfect, like he'll do like devotionals, like I'm like, yes, like the Lord sent me the man of my dreams, like, you know, like it's just like obviously what you said too, it's like that getting to know each other period. Like it's like I feel like Harry, like my boyfriend now, is like we had a long like time of getting to know each other, and like really honestly like growing as friends and getting to know each other's hearts with no intention of like dating like at that time, you know. So it was like so beautiful like how it came to be, because like he became like my best friend and not my source of life, you know. And so then it was like I stand secure in who God says I am and who God says he is, and I know that I'm not going to be perfect and he's not going to be perfect, but when we do mess up, it's not like I'm going to be like, oh, you're not doing this for me, bye, you know, like you obviously aren't what you cut out to be, all this stuff. Like no, like it's like this guy, like when I got to know Harrison, it was like knowing his heart and just what came out of his mouth about, you know, like how much he loved Jesus and what he was doing to pursue Jesus. It was like, wow, this is a godly man, you know. And so like that just made it more beautiful, because it's like you guys have to be on the same page, you know. So kind of what you said too, it's like if he's actively seeking the Lord, so must you. And like not even just because you're in a relationship, because of your individual relationship with God, but also if you want your relationship to thrive, you have to be running after the same thing. So otherwise this is going to be like all over the place. So but yeah, that's just my take on it.
I think also, like, if we're talking biblical roles in a relationship, like, people don't like to hear this often, especially nowadays, but, like, biblically, the man is supposed to lead the relationship, and the woman, we were created to be helpers.
Yeah.
And that's not that's not like shouldn't be like chafing, like, you know, that shouldn't rub us the wrong way. Like, God knows what we're good at and what our role in the relationship should be. And something that my boyfriend Kyle and I like talk about sometimes when we're talking to other people about our relationship is the fact that, like, yes, he's a leader and yes, I'm the helper, but there's sometimes when that's not the case. That's not a bad thing. Like, there's sometimes when Kyle's down and I need to be up for us. And then there's other times that it's vice versa. And, like, you know, that's just how it is. But, like, if you're not both pursuing the Lord, you won't be able to tell when the other one is down.
Yeah.
Or you'll both be down, and then there's no one to really encourage the other one. Not saying that you can pull your partner back up, because you definitely can't. But, I don't know, when you're thinking about biblical roles, like, that's important too. Like, if you're, like, a headstrong girl, like, you know, understand that, like, your role in the relationship is to, you know, be the helper, and that's not a bad thing. There's still power in that. But that's just something, you know, it's biblical, so it's truth, but that's, when you're looking at a relationship and what it should be once you're in one, that's something to really think about and to talk with, talk to with your partner. Because it's really important, and that's how your relationship thrives, when you're in the roles that God created for you to be in.
Yeah, and also I would love to talk, and I'm sure this might be a whole other video topic too, because when part two already planted it. But I remember when I was younger, and like very recently, like when I would hear that, I'd just be like, la la la. You know what I mean? Because it just like didn't feel right, because for some reason I felt like it was demeaning to me if I wasn't the leader. And I think that that is just totally a culture of accomplishment-based worth that is influencing that. But like, your worth is not in whether you're a leader or not. Like, your worth is not in, and like, leader is subjective too. But I would love to like talk about that more and like hear what you think a spiritual leader means. And also, I think it's important, because we are young, and especially if you're younger than us or like around the same age, like, it's important to try to see the potential, but not falling in love with the potential before it's realized. Like, don't expect the guy to be the spiritual leader of a family before when he's still learning, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you have to make sure that he has the qualities that can turn into that. And also, you have to make sure that his love for the Lord isn't just like fiery passion, that it's a sort of love that will endure through the hard times. Because I think it's really easy, especially I've been in this, you know, place in my faith where like I'll go to a church camp and I'll be like, woo, like I'm about to tell the world, you know, I'm so on fire, like like send me out, Lord, like send me out to the ends of the earth. And then like a few months go by, and you know, I really don't love God more than everything in my life, just like maybe like most things, except for the things that my hopes and dreams that I like really don't want to let go of. And then my love for him kind of fades away, you know what I mean? And so like, I think it's really important to make sure that the guy has a passion for the Lord, but also like a deep, deep rooted love that is going to endure through hard times. And I think my answer to the question in terms of like roles, I think that you guys covered that awesome in being in a relationship. I think when you are in the process of dating, because, you know, I haven't been in a relationship, but like I've dated, I've been on a couple of dates, that sort of thing. And I think it's really important before you start dating to make sure that you're in a place so that you can date painlessly. And what I mean when I say that is make sure that you're not putting your worth in whether this guy likes me back, you know, or like if it doesn't work out. I think that dating doesn't have to be personal. And the first time that I heard that, I was like, oh, you know, because like I've been on a couple of dates with some really awesome Christian guys who are going to be incredible Christian men, and that are awesome, but it just like wasn't right. You know, not everyone can be your soulmate, and there's nothing personal about that. And so if you go on a date with a guy, or even a couple of dates with a guy, and it just doesn't work out, that shouldn't crush you. You have to be in a place, and that shouldn't crush him either. Like, I think that you should go at it and like be friends first, and don't have too many expectations, and don't put your worth and all your hopes and dreams into something that's not, you know, actually happened yet. And I think that that is just a way of guarding your heart. I think that when that phrase guarding your heart comes up, it's never really explained. But I think that, you know, the Lord has taught me through some dating experiences that that's what that means, is to love yourself enough and know and trust that the Lord has someone for you, and that this is just a process of evaluating to see if that is that person that the Lord intended you to be with. And if not, then no hard feelings. Like, you guys can go your separate ways or continue to be friends. Like, ultimately, the dating process, ideally, and I know that there's some complications and this can't always be true 100% of the time, but you should strive to try to date as painlessly as possible, so you guard your heart and you also help guard the other person's heart as well.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of confidence and security in your identity in the Lord.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so this kind of goes perfectly into the next question, but like kind of going off of that and like guarding your heart and being secure in the Lord, like why is it so important to have a foundation of Christ before you jump into a dating relationship? So
I feel like I could write a book on this. Just kidding. I've learned painfully the hard way, unfortunately. It's just like, it's hard in general to find your identity in the Lord, but to do it while dating someone is almost impossible. And I know that from experience, and I think my boyfriend Kyle would literally say the same thing. Like, when my identity wasn't in the Lord and it was in him, that was like such a heavy pressure on him. Because he can't live up to that. And him trying and knowing that he's trying for the both of us is just like it's a strain on the relationship. And that's one reason why it's important, but also for your own sake, just personally, people disappoint you, and not just like dating painfully in the beginning, but like the whole way through painfully. If my boyfriend does something that's not even a big deal, but all of a sudden I'm like overthinking and it's a big deal to me, and then it becomes this huge disaster in my mind because all my worth is in him, and like, oh my gosh, like, what if he doesn't feel the same about me? If we break up, what am I going to have? Nothing. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be so heartbroken, all this stuff. Like, well, if everything in my life is just my relationship, like, that's very sad, Like, we were made for more than that. We were made for a relationship with God, and I think if you crack down on that beforehand, it's just so much easier. And I wish I could give like a simple 1, 2, 3 step on how to do that. But honestly, it took a lot of time for me to understand that, and I was already struggling with insecurity and like self-worth on top of all of this, so just mix all that together and it was awesome. But it is hard, especially when you're wanting to date or if you're already dating in general. But I just think it's important because humans aren't ever going to live up to that, and putting your worth in a relationship, like, there's only so far it can go in terms of, there's always more with the Lord. Putting your worth in something that is just way bigger than anything else, you can always move up. And putting your worth in something like a relationship where you're just dating, like, it's never bigger than that until like marriage, and who knows when that will happen. So I don't know. That was a lot, but that's something that's been personally hard for me, and something I feel like I'm always preaching to people when they talk to me about singleness, because that's, I wish I would have done that.
Yeah. I think that, like, for me, like, in past dating relationships, like, I always went into a dating relationship so fast because I was so afraid to be alone. I think that I would just jump from, like, okay, like, if this is ended, what's the next thing? And then I jump into another relationship. It's just harmful, not only to you, but it's harmful to the other person, because you're not only coming into that relationship insecure about yourself, but you're gonna place the insecurities that you took from that relationship with that person and place it on them. And from my experience, that's kind of what I did. It was like, I never gave myself any time to heal. I never gave myself any time to grow with the Lord, of, letting my pain have purpose. It was more so just throwing my pain on someone else and being like, can you take this from me? Because I don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? And so, like, going into dating relationships, it always started painfully, and I was always dating painfully. Like, I love how you said that, because it kind of put like my high school dating into words. Like, it was like it was so like, not saying that like that those dating relationships were terrible, but it was like, on my part, like, I look back and I'm like, that's one thing that I look back and I'm like, I don't regret, but also I'm like, wow, like looking at that now, this is kind of like that what I wish I knew then, what I know now kind of thing, because that could have saved me so much heartbreak, like so much heartbreak, you know. And obviously like everything that I went through brought me to where I am now, but again, like I could have, you know, saved myself from so much heartbreak for that.
When I'm looking back, excuse me, at my time being single and continuing on being single, I really feel like it gave me the mental space to be able to understand myself more, but also understand the Lord and all of the relationships in my life. And I feel like time and time again in the Bible and in the Gospels, Jesus goes to the widower, goes to the lost, goes to the broken, goes to the person who's alone. And I remember my senior year was not my most favorite year. I dealt with a lot of loneliness in that season, but I didn't, and I'm not saying that I learned this and was great at it, but you know, I kind of painfully learned that, you know, the best lesson I took out of that senior year and being lonely was how to enjoy my own company and how to enjoy company with the Lord. And that is not something that I did literally that entire year, but like, praise the Lord, by the grace of God, he kind of pulled me out of that. But that I think is like so critical, especially before you go to college. Because if you can't be alone, I'm an extrovert. I know some of our introverts maybe don't relate as much, but I'm an extrovert. I love people, and I really struggle even now to be alone and to be by myself. And so I think that that's one of the issues that we kind of think that a relationship is an easy solution to. I would never do anything by myself, and that was just perpetuated the feeling of being isolated and alone and sad, and my life sucks and I'm wasting my life and all this sort of stuff. But then one day the Lord just kind of whispered in my heart that you can do these things on your own. That's okay. You can go to a nice restaurant that you want to go to and literally sit there and have a meal by yourself and bring a book or bring your Bible and spend it with the Lord and with yourself. You can figure out your own hobbies that you can do in your house that bring you joy, and then that allows you to discover more about yourself and also about the Lord, which is so beautiful. But I felt like for so long I was just waiting on a relationship. I was waiting on friends so I could go live this dream Pinterest life where we go and travel across the country in our van and all that sort of stuff, or I go on all these cute dates or whatever. Or finally a guy sweeps me off my feet and pays for all these nice meals and takes me on all these dates and all that sort of stuff. And then I think it was the most empowering decision when I decided I'm gonna just do it by myself, and I'm gonna just do it with my friends. I'm gonna go to these fancy restaurants that we cannot afford, and we're gonna have a good time, and I'm gonna plan all these cute things for myself. And that brought me so much joy, and I learned so much about the passions that the Lord had put in my heart by doing that. And I think that a lot of times you have to be alone in order to discover those things.
Because that goes just perfectly with setting that foundation, you know, and kind of for me when I came out of high school, it was going into college, I was something needs to change about that, because you know I caught my own patterns. It was honestly God was really calling me out on it. He was this is something that needs to change, you know. And so I think sitting with that, it was so uncomfortable for me to be alone too, and I was this makes me feel weird. I don't like this.
It's weird.
You know?
It's weird.
Yeah, and so honestly, it was I had to just sit down with myself and almost get myself in a headspace where it was I just had to be still before God and just kind of get myself in the routine of, you know, being okay with the fact that it was okay to be alone, or it was okay to do things by myself, and that doesn't mean that I'm any less loved because I'm not surrounded by people 24/7. And honestly, it's such a beautiful thing that I went through that, because although it was kind of awkward at first, I now treasure my alone time with the Lord. I crave it, you know. And so it's when I was hanging out with people 24/7, when I was dating that person, when I was with those friends, it was great. But honestly, all of that time, you know, really distracted me from the pain that was sitting in my heart, you know, because there was so much going on. I never gave myself the space to really sit with God and just pour everything out. It was like, honestly, like it was like sitting across a table from him and just handing him half of the pieces and keeping the rest and being like, okay, you do what you want to do with that, and then I'm just going to keep and hold on to this. Not that I want to, it's just that I'm just like, I don't want to surrender everything. You know what I mean? Because that meant I had to give up that relationship. That meant I had to give up that time with my friends. That meant I had to do all these things, you know, be still. And I was like, no. But honestly, when I just gave that up, it was just, it wrecked me, like in the best way. So it was just great.
I think you just get to know the Lord in a new and beautiful way. And also, you only have so much capacity for life in general, but specifically relationships. I think that there's a study done that says that you can maintain relatively well, like about 100 friendships over your lifetime. And so I think I found myself giving up this valuable time by myself and with the Lord for relationships and friendships that did not matter, that were meaningless, that weren't fulfilling, that weren't encouraging me, and I wasn't encouraging them. And so when you take that time to figure out who you are and who you are in the Lord, you're going to be able to create more meaningful relationships in all areas of your life, and you're going to be a gift to other people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it really just sets you up. It's like going off of like kind of like, why is it so important to set that foundation? It's not only important because it's you and God, you know, it's like, if I'm going to be around these people and if I'm going to be dating this person, I obviously don't want to be their source of life, and I don't want them to be mine, but I want to be life-giving, you know, from the giver himself. And so I want to be like overflowing, you know, and I always felt like my cup was just like empty, you know, and so, and that was not, and I would sit there and I would blame God for it, but I'm like, I'm not giving God any of the time to fill my cup, you know, and so I'm just running myself dry and then not sitting with anything and just being like, why aren't you moving in my life? Or why, you know, why is this not happening? Or why is this not, like, all these things. I'm like, well, maybe I'm just not giving the time to the Lord that's needed in order to watch not only myself flourish, but also like encourage and empower the people around me. My favorite question is next. So what is a piece of scripture you carry throughout your season or seasons of singleness and dating? You want to go first? I go first! Perfect. My favorite piece of scripture that I've carried is Psalm 40. It says, I waited patiently for the Lord, and he turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud, and set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth and a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see the fear of the Lord and put their trust in him. It's kind of long. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, who does not look to the proud, to those who turn aside to false gods. Many, Lord my God, are the wonders you have done, the things you planned for us, none can compare with you. And so the reason that I carried that throughout, you know, my dating relationships and through my singleness and all the things and all the seasons of my life is because the whole time I thought that I was being, you know, I was sitting with the pain of either a breakup, a heartbreak, these insecurities that I was facing carrying relationship to relationship, you know, friends that came and gone, you know, all the things that just breaks us in life. I always thought my prayers were really bouncing off a wall because it was just like left and right and left and right, and I was like, oh no. And so I think like when I read this, I vividly remember myself like sitting in my room and I was just so upset because I was like, you know, I was like, why are these things happening? I was like, instead of asking, you know, like, what are you trying to teach me? It was more so like, oh my gosh, like, why are these things happening? And that's hard. And I'm not, you know, discounting like those feelings because I know that how real those feelings are. But it was just so beautiful to me. You know, he gave me a new song to sing. And so it was like, that really wrecked me because I was just like, wow, like, you care for me that much, and you do hear my cry, and you do see all the things that I've gone through, and you see all the things that have happened in my life, and none of that makes you turn away from me, and none of that, you know, all of my doubting and all of my, you know, disbelief, like, you just chased after me that much harder. Like, how? You know, it kind of just left me awestruck because Like, you know, all the dating relationships that I put before him, all the friendships that I put before him, everything that I thought over him, he didn't see me any less. He just kept pursuing me that much more. So this verse just like really, or this passage just really like has carried me through. And so whenever like I feel like I'm down in the pit, this is what I have to sing over myself and just praise God for.
I don't know if this how specific this is to dating and singleness and relationships, but this is just a verse that God really slapped me across the face with, but in the best way possible. I think that for a long time, again, we're talking about like misplaced identity and trying to find love from things that aren't going to fulfill us. I think for a very long time, I didn't actually love Jesus as much as I said I did. And saying that out loud even feels painful, but when you're actually honest with yourself, that's when God can move, and that's when that can change. But you have to understand that God already knows that, and He's okay with that, and He can work with that. You just have to be willing to admit it and to move forward. And so this is from Philippians 1. Philippians 1, I'll read Philippians 1:3 because I love that verse, but the verse that I really love is Philippians 1:9. So verse 3 says, this is Paul sending a letter to the church of Philippi. He says, I give thanks to my God for every remembrance of you, always praying with joy for all of you in my every prayer because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. And then skipping down to verse 9, it says, I pray this, that your love will keep growing in knowledge and every kind of discernment, so you may approve of the things that are superior and may be pure and blameless in the day of Christ. I love that because that was Paul's, above everything else, above all of the financial struggles that the church was facing that time, and all, out of all that persecution that Paul and the church faced in that time, like the one thing that he prayed for, he didn't pray for like intervention or that money would fall out of the sky and like fix all their problems. Like he prayed for a foundation of love that will grow them in their love for the Lord and their knowledge for the Lord. And that prayer, praying that the Lord will help me love Him more, has changed my life. Because if you pray that, the Lord will give you these beautiful moments of intimacy where you're just overwhelmed with gratitude and you realize and you're able to see what the Lord has done for you in your life. And you're able to, out of that love for Him, you're able to trust Him more. And when you're able to trust Him, then you're able to date painlessly because you know that the Lord, like it's all connected, because you know that the Lord has someone for you. Or even if He doesn't have someone for you, that He has what's best for you. And that's totally been my story of asking God for things and not getting what I wanted but what I needed. Actually the opposite of what I wanted, but it was exactly what I needed. And so I just like pray that, I still continue to pray that over myself and over my friends, that their love, they'll grow in their love for the Lord, because that is what everything in your life, every good thing in your life will grow out of.
I already said that I had just a problem of being fully known. I didn't have like a single piece of scripture that I carried through singleness or dating or whatever. It was really just whatever I could get my hands on in the moment, I guess. And but looking back, a piece of scripture that I think a lot of us know and have known for a while is just like, I think a beautiful reminder of like when we're looking to be fully known, that God is really the only one who does fully know us. And it's Psalms 139, starting in verse 13. It says, for it was you who created my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I will praise you, because I've been remarkably and wondrously made. Your works are wondrous, and I know this very well. My bones were not hidden from you when I was made in secret. When I was formed in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw me when I was formless. All my days were written in your book and planned before a single one of them began. That's just, maybe it doesn't relate exactly to dating, but when it comes to, making sure that you're dating well in the sense that you're connected to the Lord and your worth is in Him, I think this verse just shows us that He is the only one that deserves that type of attention from us. The type of attention that's like your entire being. So I just love that.
Yay, guys, that was awesome. So fun. Thank you guys for coming. That's amazing. I hope you guys benefited from this. Is that a word?
Yeah.
I hope you guys benefited from this video. But I just hope this really encourages you guys in your dating relationships and your singleness, whether you're engaged or even married. I hope this just kind of points you right back to Him and kind of brings your heart back. So yes, it's awesome. I'm so glad y'all tuned in today. Make sure you subscribe and like this video and stay tuned for more.